The Federal Election Commission is an absolute mess. They're supposed to police elections. So if you're violating the rules and you're collecting money in a way you're not supposed to, well, they're supposed to be there to make sure that you get back in line or punish the people who are doing it wrong. Because if there are no rules, you'll have anarchy. There'll be no rule of law. Now, Republicans, you want rule of law, right? They don't want rule of law. In a state of anarchy, well, the rich are going to pour more money in, bribe the politicians better, and get the advantages they want, which is, of course, exactly what the Republican Party wants. So what they've done is they've deadlocked the Federal Election Commission. The way that it's structured, there's 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, because they don't want one party to have an advantage and be able to steamroll the other party unfairly. Now, in the past, it's worked fairly well. Not great, but all right. They went after liberals, they went after conservatives, they went after Republicans, they went after Democrats, and when the cases were clear, they would all agree. Now, recently, they had begun to lock up and say, no, that's it, okay? The Republicans would never voted against any of the Republican politicians, no matter how egregious. Of course, the Obama administration, as always, thought we can change that. We can go in there and we'll do a charm offensive and we'll get beyond the partisan gridlock. You know how this story ends, right? They didn't get beyond it. So let me give you details. New York Times says, some commissioners are now barely on speaking terms. Cross-aisle negotiations are infrequent, and with no consensus on which rules to enforce, the caseload against violators has plummeted. Now, Ravel is the chairwoman of the F.E.C. She's the one that came in there with high hopes that she was just going to talk to the Republicans and they would be reasonable. They fought her so much that when they were celebrating the 40th anniversary of the F.E.C., the Republicans started a fight on whether they should serve donuts or bagels. Literally. It's not a hyperbole. It's not a joke, okay? They fought her on everything. She wanted to say, hey, if you're violating the rules on the internet, we should punish that. They did a smear campaign against her saying, Ravel would like to regulate the internet. She'd like a government takeover of the internet. She's like, no, wait, if you're violating election laws on the internet, it's still a violation. I don't want to do anything else with the internet other than enforce the law as regards elections, right? They're like, taking over the internet. Why is she doing that? She's like, oh my God, it turns out these guys are not honest actors. All right, say it with me. And, of course they're not honest actors. What did you expect? Did you expect to be greeted as liberators? No, they're the bad guys. They want the rules broken at the F.E.C. Look, the 2 things that Republicans don't want to work in government most, there's a lot that they don't want to work, right? But are the F.E.C. and the IRS. If the Federal Election Commission doesn't work, Republicans can violate the law to get more bribes from the rich and from giant corporations, from the elite, etc., from special interests, from lobbyists. They take those bribes, and then when they get into office, they give back all the tax cuts and all the tax loopholes to those same rich people. And so if the IRS doesn't work, they don't catch them on all the different things that they're doing, including sometimes just outright cheating on their taxes. Because the whole system is geared towards helping the rich and the elite, and the Republican Party, the Democratic Party does it too, but the Republican Party has institutionalized it. They're almost 100% on board for that. That's the whole point of the Republican Party. To think that you could have an honest and reasonable conversation with those guys is hilarious. So what's happened instead? Ravel says, quote, the likelihood of the laws being enforced is slim. I never want to give up, but I'm not under any illusions. People think the F.E.C. is dysfunctional. It's worse than dysfunctional. In other words, oops, you can violate almost any law you like when it comes to election. You can take any legal or illegal bribes you like. They gave the robbers and the criminals the keys to the jail. It's a jailbreak. Everybody run out. You can do whatever the hell you want. They're literally saying those 3 Republican commissioners will not vote against Republicans almost under any circumstance, okay? So, major fines were already not high. They were tiny amount. Remember, there are billions spent on these elections. In 2013, it was $627,000 so it's not that high at all. In 2014, it became comically low at $135,000. We had a major election in 2014. Billions spent, violations left and right. Nobody's minding the store. You know who's against cops? And that's what the F.E.C. is. They're cops, right? They're making sure that people don't violate the law, and there are consequences if they do. People against the cops are the robbers. Okay, and they have a whole party called the Republican Party. All right. Eileen Weintraub, who's a Democratic commissioner, says, the few rules that are left, people feel free to ignore. It's a free-for-all. Finally, let's turn to the Republicans. How are they going to defend themselves, okay, when it's patently obvious that they refuse to enforce the law for a party that claims to be in favor of rule of law? Hilarious. Lee Goodman is the Republican commissioner there. He's one of the three. He says, Congress set this place up to gridlock. This agency is functioning as Congress intended. The democracy isn't collapsing around us. I love this because it's so brazen. It's like, what? They gave me 3 votes. They gave the Democrats 3 votes. I get to use them any way I like. I told you the whole point is gridlock. Gridlock isn't the problem for Republicans. It's the answer. That way they get government to stop working entirely. And then when you get frustrated with it, their final little twist is they turn around and go, you see that? Big government sucks. When they were the one who threw the monkey wrench into the government in the first place and let the robbers run wild and let them take all of our money through these enormous bribes to the political system. It's a good little racket. I love that the Obama administration, more than 6 years into it, is finally like, oh my God, I can't believe what they're up to. Yeah, this is what we told you from day one. You should have been prepared for a real fight, not come in there playing patty cakes. This is what patty cakes led to.